Try HelloFresh UK to get 60% off your first box, 25% off for 2 months, and to of course help support this channel. Link is down in the description. Thank you for your support. Well, another weekend full of surprises complete in a championship, and we are back today to look straight ahead to the midweek action as matchday 21 is upon us. We're going to run through all 12 games across Tuesday and Wednesday, giving our score predictions and the reasons why. And of course, I'll encourage you to do the same in the comments. If you beat or match my overall score, you will get a shout out in the next recap. So before we go and look ahead to all 12 matches, matchday 21 this season, let's go and have a quick recap of what happened on matchday 20, because it was a bit of a frustrating finish for me. Not because I didn't get more of a score, because actually, the last goal of the day in the championship on Saturday did give me a 7th point to take my tally up by 1 overall. But the problem is, it got a lot of you guys 3 points, and instead of finishing 9th, I would have finished 4th had that last goal not gone in. So a lot of you benefiting from Watford's equaliser, but my perfect score was another championship's favourite scoreline. This time Huddersfield 1, Bristol City 1. I also got a point for Coventry, Leeds, Leicester, and that draw at the end we just mentioned. But let's have a look at who beat me in the comments, because one person drew and 8 people beat me. 4 of you courtesy of the Watford result. So Teo, you were level with me on 7. Well done to you for a decent effort. Peter and Mello, 2 of the regulars on 8. David, Alex, Chris and BPK, 4 more of the regulars, all on 9 apiece. And then 2 winners, 2 of the regulars this weekend, with 10 points apiece in double figures. It is Mitchell and it is Steve. Very different to the Premier League preview yesterday, in which I won the match day. This time I barely made the top 10. So well done to everyone in the comments. Another very close and tense weekend, with virtually everyone separated by 5 points. But let's move ahead now to matchday 21 and see what we've gone for in all of the games, because we start with the first of 6 games on Tuesday night. It is Blackburn Rovers versus Bristol City. Blackburn disappointing against Leeds United in one of the lunchtime kickoffs. Thoroughly disappointing defensively. And again, just susceptible to the counter. Not always taking chances. I mean, it's been the story of Blackburn's season, and that game in a number of ways perfectly illustrated it. For Bristol City, probably the better side against Huddersfield statistically. But Huddersfield are doing their job. They're digging in. They're making it difficult. And Bristol City just could not break them down. Liam Mann inside having a lot of the ball. And yes, having some chances, but a lot of them from distance or half chances, rather than creating a number of glorious openings. A lot of set pieces as well. The majority of them not used that wisely. But a 1-1 draw for them, it does stop that mini rot of 2 straight defeats. For Blackburn, they're on the same run now. They've conceded 7 goals in the last 3 games. And aside from the clean sheet against Stoke, it's been a poor defensive record for the last month or so. With that in mind, it looks like a mid-table clash, but it's close in that race for the playoffs. I'm going to go for Blackburn to take their chances this time. Bristol City will be a bit more open defensively. Blackburn will press while Bristol City are trying to play out, and I feel they will get enough chances. They've got to take them eventually, and at times at home, they have been good scorers this year. So I'm going to go for Blackburn to edge this game narrowly by 2-1. Next up is the side that drew with Bristol City. It is Huddersfield Town versus Preston North End. Huddersfield, we've mentioned it for a few weeks now. Darren Moore not really able to play the way he would like to, but they're giving up possession, they're being defensively solid, and you know what, they're staying in games. So with players coming back from injury and with the way they've been fighting in recent weeks, there's a lot of credit to be given to them there. Not always what we expect to see from Darren Moore's teams, but definitely a lot of positives. And again, managed to pick up another point, which keeps them out of the relegation zone with some teams picking up form below. And the table really has tightened up. So 1 win and they could pull away from that. And they might see this one as a chance, because despite ending a run of 3 straight defeats, Preston have been in abysmal form. They don't look like scoring at the minute. They've scored none in the last 3. They didn't look like creating much against Norwich. It looked like they were playing for a draw. Yet again, no threat of dominating a game. And they just clung on for a point in the end. It's really disappointing to watch. Ryan Lowe is going to have to get a reaction soon. Not even in terms of results, but the performances have got to improve. There was a lot of positivity about the start. We did say be wary of the fixtures. But to come up against the Norwich side that have been, with the greatest of respect, so poor defensively, and to go to the second worst defence in the Championship and have one shot on target, you've probably got to ask a few questions. So I'm going to say for this one, Huddersfield have got a great chance. If they defend the way they have been and they keep that persistent goal threat, I think they might nick a very ugly game. There's every chance, knowing the way the Championship is, this could be thriller of the week. But the way it is at the moment, I'm going for an ugly 1-0 home win. And if Huddersfield can win this one, 5 unbeaten, and they start to move away from the bottom 3. Let's move on to a big game at the New York Stadium. It is Rotherham United versus West Bromwich Albion. West Brom beaten 2-1 at Sunderland in a game that was, well, in the end overshadowed by bizarre refereeing decisions. Potential red card West Brom were lucky to get away with. Of course, an offside goal they were lucky to get away with. But in the end, still just beaten 2-1. Look, if we're being honest, they were second best in that game. A rare poor performance from West Brom. Not the best defensively, considering what we usually see from them and Corberan. But they stayed in the game, they made it a grandstand finish. And to be fair, the 2 games they've lost recently are against Sunderland and Leicester. Certainly nothing to be ashamed about. Going away to Rotherham though, there's going to be a lot more demand and expectation because Rotherham lost the managerless derby 2-1 at home to Alan Sheehan Swansea. The early red card to Ayala was, well, game defining in the end. Nombe in the second half did pull one back and they showed spirit to stay in the game. But in the end, beaten, outplayed for the most part. But it's hard to judge it too much when you've played so long 10v11. But it's not really what you want at the start of a 3-game week when you've got to play 2 successive home games, knowing that you're probably not going to get anything away in the third one because of your away record over the year. To spend 75 minutes playing with 10 men is not an ideal scenario. It is a long run without a win for Rotherham. They moved to the bottom of the table because of Sheffield Wednesday's result. And at the time of recording on Saturday night, they have still not got a new manager. So for this one, I'm going for West Brom to get back to winning ways. And I'm going to go for a comfortable 2-0 away victory for the Baggies. Let's move on to a game that might well be a managerless derby by the time we get to it. At the time of recording, Alex Neil is still Stoke City manager. They host managerless Swansea City, who got the big win away at Rotherham on Saturday. Yes, the red card was influential, but they did create a lot. They did play quite well. Okay, maybe not as convincing as it should have been when playing for that long against 10. And yes, he'll be a little bit worried, Alan Sheehan, about the goal that Rotherham were able to score. But overall, 3 points on the board and a really important result for them. For Stoke, 4 successive defeats, 6 without a win. 4 of those they haven't scored in, and they've let in 10 in the last 4. They handed Sheffield Wednesday their first away win of the season late on after missing a penalty in the second half. And while it was an okay performance, let's be honest, it was a fairly even game against a side who have been hapless away from home this year. Really a big concern for Stoke, who are now just 2 points above the relegation zone. They dropped to 20th place. I've got a feeling that the board are going to panic and sack the manager before the next game, but I might be proven wrong. We'll see if he's in charge on Tuesday. For this game, I'm banking on the fact that Swansea and Stoke probably won't have a manager. And based on the fact that neither have been wholly convincing in recent times, I'm going to go for the Championship's favourite scoreline and sit on the fence with a 1-1. Let's get to the penultimate game on Tuesday night. It is Watford versus Ipswich Town. Watford ruined my chances of a better weekend predictions with that late equaliser against Southampton, whereas Ipswich were absolutely brilliant away at Middlesbrough to get a 2-0 win against the odds. Okay, Borough were without a few key players in defensive areas, but you've got to give Ipswich credit. They keep doing it. They keep looking a threat. And I do love the way they can play completely differently away from home and just be this solid, robust, pretty dull team to watch when at home they're a goals bonanza essentially. So you've got to give them massive credit for that. They just about edged the game in my opinion and deserved to win it. It was a good away display and they look in great form. Important with the way that Leeds are playing that they continue to keep winning the games because I don't think either of the other two are going to slip up there. Whereas if we look elsewhere in this game, Watford showed spirit again. And I gave them this credit against Norwich. I gave them this credit against Hull. It was the thing they weren't doing last season. If Watford went behind in a game, you could basically say, okay, that's game over. They've lost. This season, not the case. And Valérien Ismaël, he's gradually getting going there. That point keeps them within 2 of the playoffs. They're in that mid-table pack that are pushing along. And it is just the 1 defeat against Leicester in their last 5 now. A really good effort and some good home performances too. But this game is going to be tight and it's going to be cagey. I got Watford to draw against Southampton right, but I just feel Ipswich are that little bit better. I think they'll be able to set up more cautiously, but offer a greater threat on the counter. They won't try and keep the ball quite as much as Southampton did. So I'm going to go for one of those ugly 1-0 away wins, but I could easily see this being a draw again. I just think because of Ipswich's record this season, the second best away one in the league, only one defeat on the road. And I know Watford's home record is good. They've only lost 2 at Vicarage Road. I mean, a draw would have been sensible, but because it ruined my weekend, I'm going for 1-0 to Ipswich on Tuesday night. The final game on Tuesday, though, is Sunderland versus Leeds United. Both sides won in their early kickoffs on Saturday. Leeds with a convincing 2-0 win at Blackburn. Sunderland with a 2-1 win against West Brom. That, as we mentioned, could have been more. Probably could have been playing against 10 for a while. And they should have had another goal, shouldn't they? Let's be honest. But overall, really important for them. After the surprise sacking of Tony Mowbray, I don't think the performance was that different, to be honest with you. They've been pretty good at home for most of the season. But in this game, they delivered again. And they made sure they got their 6th home victory. And a good one against a strong West Brom side as well. But 2 games without defeat for them. Leeds are absolutely flying now. And I'm still sticking with my pre-season prediction of them to be in the top 2. So for this game, what do I go for? I have a real feeling this is going to be tight. Of course, we don't know if Sunderland will have a manager by then. But Daniel Farke's Leeds, they're unstoppable at the minute. Just about I'm going for them to nick it. I think they will concede one because Sunderland are better going forward. I'm going to go for them to win this Leeds by 2-1. Let's move on to Wednesday night where we've got another 6 games in the house. And we start with Cardiff City against Wayne Rooney's hapless Birmingham City, who, I've got to be honest with you, for the first 10 to 15 minutes were pretty dismal against Coventry. Showed no sign of getting back into the game once they went behind. And Coventry probably should have scored more towards the end. It was a really poor defensive display. And they just look so feeble at the minute. They ended up playing more direct than they even had under John Eustace by the end, which I found a little bit surprising. And defensively, those little mishaps, those little moments of lacking concentration, there's really worrying signs there, I've got to be honest. And now, Birmingham, from being a playoff side under Eustace, albeit not with the best away record, are just 4 points above the dotted line, are really struggling, and they go away from home again to a Cardiff side who, do you know what? They're not playing well at the moment. And I've got to be honest with you here. This is what I expected the last 3 or 4 games when Errol Balut took charge. And we talked about it in the manager special. This is how his sides generally played in Turkey. It was low scoring. It was low risk, low percentage football. And it was just about making sure you ground out results. And you know what? Cardiff Millwall was an awful game. Probably should have been a 0-0 draw or a 1-1 draw. But Cardiff got the win. And we've said that 3 or 4 times this season. Cardiff have found a way to get results. And at times they had a bit of a soft underbelly last year. That is certainly not the case this time around. So certainly not a criticism that they're picking up results. And the fact they're in 7th place is an incredible effort, given the peril most expected in pre-season. They're at home to a Birmingham side where now probably most will be expecting them to win. Birmingham's away record is appalling and getting worse. And I'm going to go for Cardiff to win this. I think they're going to edge what will be, I think, a game maybe decided on mistakes. And I'm going to go for Cardiff City by 2-1. Let's move on to a big game at the CBS. It is Coventry City versus Southampton. Coventry won 2-0 against Birmingham. We mentioned it. Very comfortable display. But most importantly, 2 goals for Callum O'Hare. Crucial coming back from injury. While not a similar type of player as such to Victor Gyökeres, he is someone who's got that moment of magic in him. And his second goal, you saw the footwork, the composure, is something that Coventry haven't got in abundance, particularly when you look at the other types of strikers they've brought in, more physical types, people who are going to hold up and play with their back to goal, and maybe those that are going to run the channels. Whereas O'Hare is the man who can make something happen on the ball, and he did so on a couple of occasions there. Whether or not he'll play in all the games for 90 minutes for now, I'm not too sure. But this game is certainly going to be a tough one because Southampton, despite the late heartbreak against Watford, did extend their unbeaten run yet further. They're up in 4th place, they're doing really well, and they're still picking up points. But this one, probably not the best game in the world. They didn't create a number of chances. They kept the ball without really opening Watford up a great amount, which is basically what we predicted pre-match. But given the position they were in and how strongly they've finished a lot of games this season, it's them who's generally been scoring the late goals. I think they'll be a bit disappointed with that one. In this one, I'm actually going to go for exactly the same score. Coventry don't often lose at home, but quite often haven't got the firepower to go and win a game 2 or 3. And Southampton are very hard to beat at the moment, but we know they've got a defensive lapse in them. So I feel the Championship's favourite scoreline is a safe prediction here. Let's move on to the league leaders Leicester. They host Joe Edwards' Millwall. It was a 1-0 defeat for Millwall at Cardiff in a very poor game. And after that brilliant start for Joe Edwards at Sheffield Wednesday, 4 without a victory and just 1 point in that time. Away from home, poor performances at Cardiff and Ipswich. And against Leicester, you do not want to be struggling when you arrive there, because a 4-0 win against Plymouth probably could have been more. I would argue they took their foot off the gas a bit later. To add to the strength in depth at the club, we've seen Vardy and Iheanacho score goals this season. Mavrodydi's been brilliant throughout. Now Patson Daka gets a rare run out for the team, scores a goal, should have had another, looked very threatening in all departments. So a very good performance for Leicester, albeit Plymouth not the best side on the road. And after that little blip they had a few games ago, to now be 4 unbeaten with 10 points again. They're right back at the top. They're 8 points clear of Leeds in third, and they're looking very good. So we know they're going to be solid defensively. We know Millwall are struggling a bit at the back. I'm going to go for a comfortable, comprehensive Leicester win. I was going to go 3-0 again. I fancy Millwall to nick a goal from somewhere. So I'm going to go for Leicester City 3, Millwall 1. On to the final 3, and we begin with Norwich City versus Sheffield Wednesday. Wednesday are off the bottom after a big 1-0 win at Stoke. Back-to-back wins for the first time this season. An away win for the first time this season. Yes, they rode their luck with a missed penalty. Yes, it took them till the 91st minute. But they're staying in games. They're fighting hard. And you know what? While he can't fully implement the style he wants at the minute, Danny Roll is doing a good job to make this team competitive. They're probably going to need a couple more results before January to well and truly be in the mix. But they stayed in the game. Do you know what? They put their bodies on the line as well, which is something we've not always seen from Sheffield Wednesday this year. So really good from them. Norwich played against a Preston side that came for a point, and they couldn't break them down. They had a lot of the ball, they had a lot of shots, but didn't create too many clear-cut opportunities. I can only think of one off the top of my head. And to be honest with you, Preston got what they came for. Norwich, they'll be happy for the clean sheet, but they really struggle for goals, which is a bit of a shame. Sheffield Wednesday, you would imagine, will come with a fairly similar game plan. But the question is, have they got more of a threat on the break than Preston? I really don't know going into this one. I feel like Norwich will have a similar type of game, but they can't draw a blank twice in a row, can they? They've been free scoring for the most part this year. They're actually one of the top scorers in the division. So I'm going to go for them to nick this game. Sheffield Wednesday doing better, but I'm going to go for the rare breed of back-to-back clean sheets for Norwich City and an ugly 1-0 win at home to Wednesday. Let's move on to QPR, one of the informed teams in the division now. They're hosting Plymouth Argyle, as we mentioned, are one of 2 teams not to win on the road this season. They were beaten 4-0 at leaders Leicester, which, in isolation, they were outplayed by a much better team. But there have been worrying signs on the road all season for them. Closer games against Coventry and Leeds, but it's not often they've looked like winning on the road this season. QPR suddenly look like winning every game though. 2 clean sheets, 3 wins, 8 goals. They are in brilliant form. And it's those players that were a bit ostracised and pushed away under Gareth Ainsworth. Those flair players, those creative sparks that have come back into the team. And Marty Cifuentes is making the most of them. Willock with a goal of peace, creativity throughout. And you know what? It was a more even game than the scoreline suggests. On another day, it could have easily been a 1-1 draw or a 2-2 draw. You've got to give QPR credit. They've got a bit more of a threat going forward now. They have been more solid defensively in recent weeks. And to be fair as well, they are getting a few players up to speed, which means we're starting to see a good Championship 11. For this game, you have to back QPR for a win. They've been in good form and won back-to-back home games. They've been scoring goals in those as well. And given Plymouth's away form this season and the sheer amount of goals they're conceding on the road, 19 already in 10 games, I'm going to have to go for QPR to win it. I know they've got one of the worst home records in the division, but since Cifuentes has come in, that has very much changed. I'm going for QPR to win and win comfortably by 3-1 at Loftus Road. And the final game is a pretty big one in an outside chase for the playoffs. It is Middlesbrough versus Hull City. Both sides will be disappointed with 2-0 defeats at the weekend. Borough a little depleted, no senior right backs available, but Isaiah Jones will be back from suspension for this one. They also came up at home against one of the best sides in the division, who are rock solid defensively away from home. But it was a bit of a lack of creativity for Borough, which has been a concern on and off at different times this year. Back-to-back defeats for both of these teams as Hull City lost at QPR. Hull kept the ball well. They did create some chances, but defensively, a few signs of concern for Liam Rosenior, which we've not seen for a while with his whole team. In the last 6 games, despite that clean sheet against Huddersfield, they have now conceded 10 goals, and that is something they're going to have to improve upon, particularly if they want to rediscover that early away championship form this season. So for this one at the end, I feel it's a tough one to call. I was very tempted to go for a championship's favourite scoreline, and I wouldn't be shocked if that's the result, but with a right back in defence for Borough, I feel like they're going to nick this game. I'm going to go for the home crowd to pull them through. I'm going to go for them to edge a pretty poor game, and I'm going to go for Middlesbrough to win this one to finish off by 2-1. So with that all out of the way, let's have a quick recap of what I've gone for matchday 21. I've got 2 teams to score 3, which are both Leicester and suddenly flying QPR, both at home this midweek on Wednesday. We got a couple of smash and grab away wins, 2-0 for West Brom at Rotherham and 1-0 for Ipswich at Watford, and 2 Championship's favourite scorelines. But the big question is, in the first one I've predicted Stoke v Swansea, will Alex Neil be in charge of the game? We'll wait and see what the answer is to that one, but in the meantime, let me know what you think of my predictions down in the comments below. Do you agree or disagree? And more importantly, let me know your predictions for matchday 21 as well. If you beat or match my overall score, you will get a shout out in the next recap. That will be on Thursday ahead of the weekend fixtures. But for now, if you did enjoy this episode, please do put a thumbs up on the video. Don't forget to subscribe and turn that notification bell on to stay up to date with everything. We've got 3 or 4 Championship Manager specials incoming. We're just waiting for some appointments now. And we will be back on Thursday afternoon with another set of matchday predictions from the Championship. Between now and then, we'll have more Premier League ones on Wednesday as we look ahead to Bournemouth versus Luton. What a time to be facing them. And in addition to that, you can find my Twitch channel in the eye above. Check out all our other types of content as well. And the last few days to support HelloFresh in the description. A link to get 60% off and free delivery for your first week. Works out about 11 quid if you get the smallest box. And of course, it does help support the channel as well. So thank you very much for getting involved with that. But thank you for watching as always. Your support is greatly appreciated. And I'll see you back here next time for Matchday 22.